Everyone, I'm Frederick Bamberg. I'm trying to do this more or less on a daily basis. So I'll give my background a few times, but I've been in academics my entire life, more or less. So obviously from undergraduate to graduate school to becoming a professor, being a professor for 10 years, and now I'm wanting to share some of that journey online. Hopefully it'll be useful to students. It could be useful for students looking to get into grad programs. Or I attended Oxford. It was amazing. It was an amazing experience, and maybe it'll encourage some undergraduates and graduate students to apply there and or similar places. I'm also kind of expanding out and just trying to learn more about industry and kind of startups, and I think a lot of us are excited with that journey and how can we contribute. And I'll talk about a few ways that you can actually get involved. Even if you're not part of university, there's always ways to get involved, and you don't need to be an accredited investor in that way. You can contribute your knowledge to various startups in your area. And I'll talk about some ways that are now very legitimate ways to actually become accredited, to allow you to potentially invest in these private placements. It's fascinating when we think about these venture capitalists, Thiel and whoever else. We just think that that world is so removed from what we're experiencing. I think most people would feel that way. Oh, I'm not a venture capitalist, etc. But it turns out that we actually are a lot closer than you would think. And we talk about fear of missing, kind of missing out, kind of thing on investments. And so a lot of these people that kind of have this claim to fame to have invested in Facebook, Instagram, etc., not all of them put in millions of dollars. That's not true at all. A lot of the, especially the when you're investing in founders, it's on the order of $10,000 or $50,000 or $100,000. I think the first check to Apple was in the range of $250,000 or so. That was back, CPI and everything else. With inflation, it would have been more, obviously. But the point is, we are actually closer. And so with this kind of broad, kind of background in academics and having friends and colleagues have become very successful with their businesses outside of the university, I think I want to kind of develop a community of individuals that may be interested in these kinds of things, and just kind of talk about innovation, talk about job creation, workforce development. I'm based out of Atlanta, but this could be useful to any kind of, I don't want to say tertiary market, but if you look at my field, life sciences, it's primarily Boston, San Francisco. San Diego's doing very well. Miami's doing very well now. But in terms of the innovation, there's amazing innovation going on here, but we're not considered potentially kind of a main hub, although that is changing to a certain extent with more real estate being built and more companies moving down. But there's an amazing ecosystem here, and it'd be interesting to be able to kind of share that and kind of come up with ways in which you can really contribute and be part of these things, literally meet with these types of founders. And I just want to share that journey and talk about ways in which to do that, how you can potentially interface with those places where innovation are taking place within your local area. And one interesting thing right now, I'm working on my Series 65. Now, what is a Series 65? Why would you need to do that? Isn't that for investment advisors? So it turns out that FINRA and NASA, it's NASAA, it's not like space agency, but NASA, FINRA and the SEC have new regulations saying that if you pass this exam, less than an hour and a half exam, and you get more than, I think it's a 70% passing score, then you literally you receive accredited investor status, allowing you to invest in any private placement in which there's a requirement that you are accredited. And so you get around the million net worth, excluding your primary residence, and you get around the kind of income restrictions. You have to otherwise make $200,000 per year for 2 years, or if you're married, $300,000 for 2 years. And so, you know, a lot of people do make that, of course, but for those that are kind of just coming out of college, let's say, maybe they don't meet those standards, or, you know, anyone that has, like for myself, for example, even being a tenure track professor, I didn't quite meet that level, and, you know, I've had success in some, you know, kind of real estate income and capital gains off of real estate. But yeah, I mean, like, you know, many of us don't quite aren't quite at that level yet. God willing, we will be, etc. But and again, the reason I want to start doing this too is that you really magnify everything that you focus on. And so when you look at kind of individuals that have generational wealth, there has been, at least for the within that family, somewhat of a focus there. There's been a focus on saying, okay, what is my net worth? What are my assets, minus liabilities? And literally, the people that kind of play that game the most are the ones that literally do that calculation every day. You know, they have a call with their accountant, they're like, there's a CPA. It's like, okay, well, what are the numbers today, or their business stuff? And they tend to own their own businesses. They tend not to have kind of W-2 as their main kind of bread and butter. It tends to be they own assets, and so then, you know, by studying this Series 65, not only do you get a really nice kind of civics lesson in how the stock market works and how trading works, and you know, what the regulations are. Well, you also, yeah, I mean, it's such a broad, you know, you get a sense of how companies are formed, you know, who invests in these companies, and what are the regulations around investing in the company. It's just incredibly useful to have, and you don't have to have your own family office yet. And so it's democratizing the ability to invest. And so that's another incredibly useful thing. And so, you know, there's all these rules around what you can say, you know, if you want to try to get clients as an investment advisor, for example. Well, what you can say, though, is, listen, it's important to educate yourself. It's important to understand. So even if you do hire an investment advisor, I would literally recommend people to do this, you know, have this experience of training for the Series 65. And it's funny too, because you might go through the training and actually not even take the exam at the end, but you still have gained all that knowledge, if that makes sense. And so that's kind of one of these things where it's like, that just opened my eyes. A lot of people don't know that. And then when I started doing that, I'm like, okay, I also received my real estate salesperson license here. So I focus on commercial real estate in this area. And again, when you look at generational wealth, it tends to be that there's a progression to you know, ownership of real estate and businesses. And it turns out that, I didn't know this either, but at least in my state of Georgia, here in the U.S., once you get your once you get real estate license, and you know, you're doing, you know, commercial deals and stuff, you actually literally are then authorized to help in the purchase and sale of businesses. And so the real estate license is actually the only license. I mean, you can get other credentials and things like that, but in order to actually charge for contributing to buying and selling businesses, you do have to have your real estate license here. And it was so much fun. And so I learned that, and all the stuff that I'm learning from the SEC, FINRA, NASA exams, you start seeing, oh, well, this is really fun. So I started like then researching, what license is required for mortgage loan originators, let's say, and how does that work, and what program is involved. And not that I'm going to be pursuing all of those businesses per se, but it's just been such an education to understand the different roles of people in real estate, but also the capital markets in general, and seeing how then, if you see on the flip side, how Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and how all those mortgages get bundled. It is a phenomenal education. So I've been so fortunate with my education and like how I've actually studied and everything else, but there's always more to learn. And so you look at the Elon Musks and Mark Cubans, I'm sure, like, they just are voraciously reading and learning and understanding. So Elon Musk, it turns out, not only did a degree at UPenn in physics, but also economics, right? It's like the perfect mix to become the world's wealthiest person, really understanding kind of first principles of how things work. He talks about moving around atoms. Okay, but then you also have to have that basis in economics, a basis in understanding how to raise money and try, to not get in too much trouble with the SEC, although he's had some run-ins with the SEC. And you can kind of see how these things build. Bill Gates is another individual who reads a huge amount. And Warren Buffett, Warren Buffett spends the majority of his day reading, maybe not books, but at least the reports for companies. And again, Warren Buffett, he has gotten to that stage because he can really analyze in great detail these companies. So I've met Guy Spire, for example, who's got the Aquamarine Fund. I think he's based out of Switzerland. I think he's still there. He's got a hedge fund, so I had a chance to meet him at Oxford. He was also at Oxford. And then, he's famously known to have bid and won a lunch with Warren Buffett. And there's other, so like, not that I know Warren Buffett, but I know the guy. Actually, Bill Gates came to Oxford. He had given $10 or $15 million towards vaccine efforts, malaria vaccine efforts, with my mentor and Pete, DPhil advisor, doctoral advisor, Adrian Hill. And although I didn't sit in the room, but all of the people in the lab obviously kind of lined up and looked busy in the lab when Bill Gates flew in on his helicopter, had his meeting. He wasn't particularly happy at that time. This must have been 2006, 2007. The malaria vaccine development hadn't really taken off yet, but all of that funding and all those individuals that were hired as part of that grant actually contributed to that Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. So you kind of see full circle. So I have an incredible amount of respect for Bill Gates. Now, he was a bit coarse in the meeting, and he's kind of softened, I think, in the last 10, 15 years and stuff like that. But just, you kind of see, definitely saw the intensity, definitely saw like how. So it's not that, I'm friends with the world's richest, but I've been close enough and realized that these people are just like us. And their only X factor is the fact that they are just adamant about gaining knowledge, reading, and having amazing people around them, and investing in amazing projects. So in that way, I feel a little bit closer. And I know other people that have done very well in venture capital, and kind of saw that whole development. So anyway, I'll end it here. But I just wanted to force myself to put myself out there, start discussing some of these things, and trying to do it on a more regular basis, and and I'm trying to encourage, I guess, others to join in a community around this, and also try to do that yourselves too. Put yourself out there a little bit. This is not easy for anybody to do that, but I think we all have stuff to share, and these little tidbits could actually benefit others. So anyway, look forward to continuing this, and I'll talk to you guys soon.